So what have you got for us?
Let's see. One is a thought. It's really more of a thought. It hasn't been something I've written about yet. But I've been watching all of this, wall-to-wall measles coverage, and while I understand it is a very important health issue, and it's very problematic, and it also has some political divide, I've been thinking about it in different terms, and that is, there are many different factions in Rockland who are doing a lot to try to promote tourism and put the county on the map. Rockland County suffers from being kind of an orphan in the Hudson Valley in terms of where people think about spending their tourism dollars. And I interact with a lot of entities whose businesses are who touch on tourism or even depend on it. And I was just thinking, like a good example is Visit Nyack, which has done a massive campaign year after year to get people in and around the metro area to think about Rockland not as being a pass-through county, but as a destination. And it just occurred to me, I was just wondering, is this measles thing going to have an unintended scare effect and kind of create an impression that we have a county that, that needs to be, like sealed off, hermetically sealed off, like don't come there, don't go to the Palisades Mall, I think is our top draw as a tourist destination. So,
I have to tell you, as long as you mentioned Palisades Center, I have to say, I was there about a week ago.
Yeah.
At the height, there was a rally there. If you couldn't consider maybe a dozen people a rally, an anti-vax rally a rally, then okay, it was there. I couldn't say I noticed that there was a downturn in visitors there for that particular time of day. It was early, lunchtime around on a Friday. But I did see people who were coming in. Some were wearing masks, face masks, like you would see, someone walking around. Sometimes I see it in the city. People go in the subways, and at subways they wear surgical face mask type of thing.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of that. Now, on one hand, I'm thinking, okay, maybe that's an overreaction, or maybe you are indeed susceptible and you need to wear that. And on the other hand, I'm thinking, boy, if you're susceptible and you came to the mall anyway, good on you. There's a lot of ways to think about even that.
But you think Rockland, in a sense, maybe stigmatized for a while, like I'm staying away from there.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that, if...
But this is just a transient thing. It'll come, it'll go. Let me give you a real quick example. A few years ago, Volkswagen was accused of doctoring up their emission system and lying about it, and it was a mess, and everybody thought Volkswagen would go out of business because of the mess they made, and their sales dropped precipitously. Do you know, and this is just no more than 3 years ago, Volkswagen right now, today, is one of the top-selling cars in the United States. So people forget. They forget real easily, and they forget quickly.
They do. People do have short-term memories, and I'm just thinking about in the moment, as we gear up for the spring and the summer, a time when we have a lot of activities here in the county. I just wonder if if you've noticed, there've been camera crews here all of last week, in front of the county building, and it just seems that it took like an unintended consequence of trying to deal with a health crisis. You just wonder if it doesn't have some collateral damage.
Yeah, but on the other hand, some people will say all news is good news. So if you've got cameras standing in New City and at Palisades Center, someone's bound to watch that and go, "Hey, I didn't know there was a big mall in Rockland County. We should go there." Or, "I didn't know they had a restaurant like that in Nyack. I should go there."
Perhaps. Well, it's hard to know the answer. It's a hard thing to quantify.
Yep.
It's just a thought that occurred to me as I've been every time I get on Facebook or turn around. It's measles, and I'm thinking, well, there are other things going on here in the county, aren't there? So
Apparently not.
no, well, but that's the thing is that it feels a little blown out of proportion. It feels like the coverage is disproportionate to the problem.
I don't know about that necessarily, because it is something unique, and it's something we thought we'd eradicated 20 years ago, and now all of a sudden is back with a vengeance. So whether it's proportionate or not, it's almost kind of unprecedented.
Well, perhaps. I think this too shall pass. And
Anyway, what else you got of note in your publication?
Note. Let's see. Well, last week we wrote about this last week. This may not seem like the subject of an opera, but to me it seemed pretty dramatic. We had a situation at the Clarkstown Zoning Board of Appeals where the applicant was a pharmaceutical company in Congers, and they wanted to double the size of their building to 35,000 square feet, and they've been fighting their way through this process for almost 4 years. And just 2 weeks prior, they had gone to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they had presented their application, and a straw poll indicated that there was not one person on that board who was going to allow them to move forward with their proposal. Largely, it was objected to because of an extension toward the south that was abutting a residential district, and typically had packed rooms, and the room was packed, and residents were up in arms. And then last week, in what was just a really surprise outcome, the variances were approved, and this vitamin company, which now, in addition to just doing packaging and distribution, wants to also do manufacturing. Now they've been given the green light to expand their building and stay in Clarkstown and stay in Congers and add to the ratables, because obviously doubling the size of the building will change their tax structure. But it was mysterious because it just wasn't clear what changed the day. It was just interesting. So it was I guess it was a bullseye, not the bullseye. It was a black eye for the residents who, there was real shock in the room. It was so quiet. They were shocked. But it was also kind of a way of saying Clarkstown is friendly to business, and the zoning board recognizes that and recognized their right to expand, even though it required variances. And Vitain, the pharmaceutical company itself, I know they felt very victorious because, as I mentioned, this has been a 4-year process. So, another thing where just, you sit from a neutral place and you can see how, there's the residents who were devastated. The company was thrilled. It's not easy to be up on that board. That's for sure.
No doubt, and it's not easy to be a resident when you spend a lot of time complaining that your taxes are too high. I mean, and I'm generalizing here, but when they put something right next to your neighborhood, you go, "Well, wait a minute. I know our taxes are kind of high, but why do we have to put that near me?" There's a whole pickle when it comes to things like that.
Yeah, and in particular, this is residents who literally live aside, that Brenner Park, huge corporate park. So I think it was a harder ask for them to try to stem the tide on development. But it was just the shocking bit of it was just the turnaround in the course of the 2 weeks. We wrote about this, and I did quote the attorney Brian Quinn because I think he played the interesting card. He said to the board, the zoning board, he recited a story about a client asked him, "Is Clarkstown business friendly?" And Brian Quinn says, and I had to say, "I'm not sure." And he definitely put on his best, Clarence Darrow. I mean, he definitely had a moment of, there was that real flourish of an attorney in a courtroom kind of thing. And I don't know if that's what turned it around, because this was not a black and white application. But in the end of the day, 4-2, it was voted in, and they're going to get their expansion. So sometimes you don't have to, stay at home and watch King of Thrones to find great drama. Sometimes it's just in the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Well, if it's there, you'll find it, and it can be and will be updated as it happens. That's the great thing about your source, because it's a strictly internet business journal, I guess. Would you call it a journal?
Of course.
Yeah. And in order to access it, you just go to RC
Biz Journal.
B-I-Z Journal, rcbizjournal.com, and there it is. And every day something different is updated on there.
You got it.
All right, Tina, thank you.
Okay, so talk to you next week. Same phone number?
Oh, yeah, of course. Nothing's going to change, except we'll be on a different, an additional venue on AM 1700.
All right, I'll wear something nice.
All right. All right.